Research says your nervous system can manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals that works 3 times better than any drug. You can do it so well that you can do it with your eyes open.
How? Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is a New York Times bestselling author, a researcher, and one of the most pioneering minds in the science of manifestation and human transformation.
I am in the business of studying how people change. About 5% of who we are is our conscious mind. And then the 95% that's been programmed because of certain habits and behaviors has been programmed subconsciously. So we use meditation as a tool to teach people how to slow their brain waves down so you can enter the operating system and rewrite the program.
Oh my goodness. Today he's here to break down the science behind how your mind can influence your ability to heal the body and so much more.
This is where it gets exciting. When we show our data to scientists, I love looking at their faces. I mean, we just had 2 great stories. Pancreatic cancer, complete remission, gone. 9 out of 10 people that had PTSD no longer had it. We had 5 people step out of a wheelchair. Now here's the crazy part. We saw areas of the brain actually grow in real estate.
What does someone need to do to activate their internal pharmacy to create pain relief right now?
We finally figured out a formula. And if you could follow that formula, you'll notice that you'll start changing.
So you can actually change your DNA?
The answer is absolutely yes.
Now, for all the skeptics that have a stressful life, that feel overwhelmed, overworked, but feel like meditation is not for them, does meditation actually work? And if so, why?
Well, we use meditation for 3 things in the work that we do, because I am in the business of studying how people change, why we change, how we change, and why is it so difficult to change? And if I do change, will my life change? That's kind of the experiment, right? So the first reason we use meditation is to become familiar with a personality that's hardwired, conditioned, habituated, to break down that personality. So you have to become familiar with your thoughts and your beliefs, your behaviors and attitudes and your emotional responses. That's become so familiar, so conscious that you don't go unconscious and default back to the old personality, because then your life will stay the same. So then how do we begin to program new thoughts, right? How do I begin to think a thought with intention and attention, begin to install circuitry in the brain so it becomes the new voice in my head, right? And that's a belief. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. What behaviors do I want to demonstrate that are healthier for me, emotionally, physically, chemically, whatever? Could I rehearse how I'm going to behave with my coworkers, with my partner, with my ex, with my children? And could I begin to change my behaviors? And if I rehearse them in my mind, could I install circuitry to jump into, prime the brain and use those circuits to behave in a different way and become familiar with those thoughts and behaviors? And then could I condition my body emotionally to a different emotion like love or gratitude or freedom or inspiration? Can I do it enough times that it becomes familiar to me? So we use meditations as a tool to go from the old self to the new self, to become so conscious of your unconscious programs that you don't go unconscious of them again, and then practice thinking, acting, and feeling over and over again until you become that new personality and begin to see that your life begins to change, right? So we use it for that reason. The second reason we use meditation, it really is around the idea of change. Like, what does it mean to truly change? People know what they want to change. They know why they want to change, but they just don't know how to change, right? So to change is to be greater than your environment, because every person, everything, every circumstance, every condition in your life, you have a neurological network for because you've experienced it, right? So we tend to see reality based on a memory. We tend to see reality based on a past, right? And since every one of those people or things or experiences in your life has an emotion associated with it, the moment you see your coworker and feel judgmental, makes sense. Then your environment then is controlling how you're feeling and how you're thinking. And if your environment is controlling your thoughts and emotions and ultimately your behaviors, then you're a victim to your environment. And now your personal reality is creating your personality instead of your personality creating your personal reality. So you have to truly change then, you got to think, act, and feel differently in the same life that you're living in order for your life to change, right?
Well, for someone watching or listening right now, I could see them saying, well, actually, I don't want to change. I want everyone else to change around me. Like, why should I have to change? They're the one who's triggering me. They're the one who's abusing me. They're the one who's saying mean things. They're the one that cut me off. Like everyone else should change around me. I'm fine. This is what I used to think. I was like, I don't like how everyone else is acting. They should adapt to me. Why should I have to change?
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I would say that when the pain of your discomfort outweighs your fear of making a different choice and stepping into the unknown, you'll actually decide to change, because you'll sooner or later realize that the person who's betrayed you 5 years ago has gone on and lived their life. And the only person that's being affected by your thought or your emotional response to that person is you. It's like drinking poison, expecting the person to die. We're sooner or later we come to that point where no drug, no shopping spree, no sports car is going to make that feeling go away. And this is really kind of the moment of truth, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that there comes a point in our life where we have to really decide, okay, maybe if I change, my life can change as a consequence of it.
But why do people have so much resistance to themselves changing when they're always trying to make others change?
Because change is completely uncomfortable and it's so inconvenient. It's really inconvenient. It's never the right time. It's just never the right. There's always a lot of excuses. There's always someone else's fault. And I think that's the default, to live your life as a victim of your life instead of the creator of your life. And I think there's a big distinction between that. Because if the environment is, your response to your enemy, the only reason you see your enemy the way you see them is because of the experience you had with them or the experiences you had with them. Another person can interact with your enemy and have a completely different experience of them and see them through the lens of that experience, right?
Yeah, they could be the greatest person in the world to someone else.
Exactly. So our thoughts about our enemy and our emotional responses to our enemy, justified, valid or not, the only person it's affecting is me, right? And the stronger the emotion that I have to some person or some problem in my life, the more I pay attention to them. And where I place my attention is where I place my energy, right? So I'm giving my power away to change because of that person or that circumstance. And even if you said, Louis, why are you so upset? You say, it's that person, that person in that circumstance is causing me to feel this way and think this way. Well, what you're really saying is my environment is controlling my thoughts and emotions and behaviors, and I'm victim to it. And so usually it takes crisis, when the pain of your discomfort outweighs your fear of the unknown or your fear of change. That's the moment people finally go, I got to change, right? When no drug, nothing else is working, you're left with you, right? So we teach that to change is to think, act, and feel differently in the same environment. And if your body has been emotionally conditioned because you keep remembering the problems in your life and feeling the emotions associated with them, your body's being conditioned into the past, and the body's being literally believing it's living in the past. If I run through the same habit every single day, thinking the same way, making the same choice, doing the same thing, creating the same experience, and feel the same emotion over and over again, if I do that enough times, it becomes habituated, it becomes more automatic. And that's when we lose our free will to change to a set of programs, right? So to change then is to be greater than the body as the mind, be greater than the habituations it's created, because a habit is when the body is the mind, and to be greater than those emotions that keep us responding and reacting as if we're in the past, right?
What do you mean by that, when the body is the mind?
If you think about a problem in your life, the problem in your life is connected to certain people with certain, conditions at certain times in certain places. The moment you remember the problem, you're thinking in the past, yes? But the thought, the memory is producing the emotion, and the emotion that you're feeling seems very real in the moment.
Yes.
When the body's so objective, it can't distinguish between the experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're fabricating by thought alone. So the body, it's reliving the past, right? So you take that thought and the feeling, the image and the emotion, the stimulus and response, and you're going to condition the body into becoming the mind of that emotion. Now the body's believing it's living in the past 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? And many people wake up and start their day with their entire state of being in the past. They think about their problems, they feel the emotions, they get back into the familiar known self, right? So this is where it gets really interesting, because the 5% of our conscious mind is working against 95% of what we program subconsciously. Wow. So you could say, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm free, I'm abundant. And your body's saying, no, you're not. You're miserable. You're in trouble. You're unhappy. And the thought never makes it to the body, right?
Why does it never make it to the body?
Because it's the mind and body are in opposition. right? The body can't accept the information of that thought because it's not feeling the feeling of that thought. It's feeling a different feeling. And the body is the mind of the past. Now, the person may forget about the problem or the past event in their conscious mind, but the body never forgets.
Really?
The information, the trauma is in the body now because the emotion is the signature chemically that's stored in the body. So when you decide to change and you say, I want to get healthy, I want to get wealthy, I want to get free, the body says, listen, man, that means we got to get out of this misery.
Interesting.
And I'd rather stay in my suffering and my pain than take a chance and possibility because it's been trained. It's all it knows. That's all it knows is that safety to be there. The unknown is too dangerous. It would rather cling to their unhappiness than take a chance and possibility. And if you've done something so many times, complain, those neural pathways are going to forge really big trunks. And it's going to be automatic. You could complain and you're going to make it look easy, and it's not going to be hard for you to complain. And that's because your body has done it enough times that it knows how to do it better than your conscious mind. So it's automatic, right? So this is all really great when you're in the comfort zone, living the life that's, familiar to you. But the moment you say, I want to change, right? The body, which has been conditioned to be the mind, does not want to go to a new future because it can't feel the feelings of it. So the struggle in change is to be greater than the emotions that have been conditioned to the body, and to be greater than the habituation to get up and check your cell phone or check your email, all the stuff that we do. You can't be in the present moment when you're doing that. So it takes an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of awareness to be able to settle the body down, because it'll do anything it can to unseat us. You're dying, you're going to have a heart attack, I'm in pain, all the body's resisting this movement. But what we discovered in the research that we do is that if you go past that point where you think you're done, and then you go past that point where you're sure you're done, and you go a little further than that, that's the moment the brain changes the most. And that's the moment the body changes the most, because you're stretching it out of the known. You're stretching it into the unknown. Nothing dangerous happens, and it starts to relax more into the unknown.
So what I'm hearing you say, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't just think alone to change the body. You need to be able to also change the body and relax the body.
In the emotional state, yeah.
In the emotional state.
And we can get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. The unknown is a dangerous place in survival.
Even if it's a healthy place.
Yeah, but if it's unknown, we come pre-programmed with all this biology for survival. And you get a better chance of surviving if you run from the unknown, right? So it goes against the survival systems in the brain and body, and the protective systems as well. So then if a person is sitting in meditation and they start thinking about their enemy, or they start thinking about their coworker, or start thinking about their cell phone, they're not in the present moment, right? Or what happened yesterday, or what's going to happen in the next 15 minutes. And this is the disentangling from the program. So if a person can catch themselves going unconscious, we discovered that the only way you actually become conscious is to catch yourself enough times going unconscious that you no longer go unconscious to it's too hard, I'll never change. You've confronted it enough times, you're aware of it enough times that voice or that thought has no power over you any longer. And this is where people usually rather get up and turn the TV on, right, than sit in that discomfort. So when the body gets agitated, when the body gets impatient, when the body gets frustrated, when the body wants to get up and do something, it's programmed to do that, and you're sitting in a meditation and you notice you're getting agitated, instead of saying, I can't meditate, you bring that body right back into the present moment and you lower the volume to that emotion. You take your attention off that problem. That's the victory. That's change right there. That's worth more than all the gold in the world.
Because you're
telling the body it's no longer the mind. And you're saying, I'm the mind now. And the body bucks and kicks like an unbridled stallion. It just doesn't want to do that. And all of a sudden it starts conjuring up thoughts, why you should leave, and does all that stuff. And you catch yourself doing that. You bring your body back down into the present moment. Now you're executing a will that's greater than the program to do what we do that's familiar.
Because your thought of your mind is saying, think about this other thing, get up, this is painful,
right,
this is annoying. It's thinking about something else to give you relief.
Right, and that's the relief from the unknown, right? And it's kind of interesting, because this is the last point about why we use meditation around the idea of change, to be greater than the environment, to be greater than the body, and now to be greater than time. Because if you're feeling the same feelings and you're thinking thoughts that are memories from the past, that's familiar. That's the familiar past. If you're trying to anticipate what's going to happen and you can predict what a person's going to do, if it's predictable because they're habituated, that's the known too. That's the predictable future. So if the familiar past is the known and the predictable future is the known, there's only one place left where the unknown exists, and that's the present moment, right? And we got to labor for that present moment, and it takes a day or two to get beyond yourself. But the moment the person can finally relax into the unknown and they can relax into the present moment, there's a dramatic physiological shift that goes on. The field around the body starts to build. Why? Because if you're no longer putting your attention on your enemy and you're lowering the volume of that emotion over and over again, you're going to forget about them. And you're going to call energy back to you. And now there's energy to heal. And now there's energy to create, right? And energy naturally moves out of these lower hormonal centers and naturally moves right into the heart. And a person can actually relax into the present moment by relaxing into their heart. If you can do that enough times, the heart all of a sudden tells the brain, hey, the past is over, the trauma is over, the betrayal is over, and it resets the baseline in the brain. So now the person's no longer interested in the past. The heart has actually taken the body out of the past into the present moment. Now the heart is the creative center. And what does it say? Lewis, dream. Dream of a new possibility. This is your imaginary state. This is where the brain waves change. And all of a sudden you start thinking about possibilities you'll never have ever thought about before, because you're feeling the emotion of that future. And because you can feel the emotion of that future, you can put your attention on it, right? And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Keep making that thought and that feeling, that image and that emotion, that stimulus and response. And now you can condition the brain and body to look like the future has already happened. Now, this is where it gets exciting, because now the experiment continues. That means that if I've truly changed my state of being and I've conditioned my body emotionally into the future, I would no longer be looking for the event any longer. When's it going to happen? Because if I feel the emotion of my future, why would I look for it? This is when the synchronicities, the simultaneities, the synchronicities, the opportunities start to kind of come to you. Like you're not going anywhere and working hard and doing a lot of things to get it. Somehow they're kind of coming to you in ways that you hadn't thought about or you expected. And that's kind of the wake-up call to say, Lewis, you're the creator of your life. You're not the victim of your life, right? So we use meditation to be greater than our body, to be greater than our environment, to be greater than time. And if you close your eyes and you disconnect from the outer world, you play music to fill the space, you can't hear the coffee, you can't hear your kids, you can't hear the lawnmower next door. Your inner world is starting to become more real than your outer world. Yeah, you got to get past yourself in the beginning, but if you do that really well, if the change is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than your body, and greater than time, we use meditation to take all of your attention off of your environment, all of your attention off your body, and all of your attention off of time. And the moment a person is no longer aware of their environment and the people and the objects and things and places, they're no longer aware of their body and they're no longer aware of time, they're no longer in the program. That is the moment they're liberated, and there's a dramatic change that happens in the brain and body. So we labor for that moment called getting beyond yourself, right? The third thing we do meditation for is to get beyond the analytical mind. And what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And about 5% of who we are is our conscious mind by the time we're in our late 30s. And then the 95% that's been programmed because of certain habits and behaviors or beliefs and perceptions and attitudes and emotion and reactions and emotional conditioning, that 95% has been programmed subconsciously. So we teach people how to slow their brain waves down. Well, we figured out a way to teach them how to slow their brain waves down and get out of the thinking, analytical, critical mind and get beyond it so you can enter the operating system where those programs exist and rewrite the program.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Now, spring always feels like a reset, clearing things out, simplifying what you don't need. And Apple Card is built with that same idea in mind. There's no annual fee, no late fees, and no foreign transaction fees. No fees, period. Get started and apply in the Wallet app on your iPhone today. Subject to credit approval. Variable APRs for Apple Card range from 17.49% to 27.74% based on credit worthiness. Rates as of January 1st, 2026. Existing customers can view their variable APR in the Wallet app or at card.apple.com. Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs Bank, USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
If someone is stuck in their head, call it the analytical mind, thinking, criticizing, judging, assessing, worrying, I guess, they're analytical about a situation, right and wrong. What is that doing to their body if their mind is always analytical?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the analytical mind. I really love my analytical mind. I think you do too, because what the analytical mind is for is to weigh knowns against unknowns.
Strategizing.
Yeah, to kind of just go, okay, I know this, I want this. How am I going to go from wanting this to having this, right? And the analytical mind tries
possibilities.
tries to figure things out. And I think it's good. It helps us to navigate in our world, right?
When does the analytical mind get in our way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you get stressed out, when you get anxious, when you get fearful, when you get angry, when you get agitated, when you get frustrated, when you feel pain, suffering, guilt, those kind of limited emotions start to drive the analytical mind to overanalyze and to overthink. And what we've discovered by looking at enough brains in action in real time, that when we analyze our life within some disturbing emotion, we make our brains worse. Because the emotion is a record of the past. So you're thinking in the past, you're thinking in the box, there's no solution there. So every time you start thinking and overanalyzing, you're producing the chemistry to arouse your brain and body even more, and now you're in a loop, right? And that's kind of ruminating, or whatever you want to call that, obsessing, over-focusing. We tend to narrow our focus on something. Like when we're under stress, it's really important to put all of your attention on the cause, right? Because you got to be able to deal with it. But a lot of times those causes are fictitious, right? And so now we're over-focusing our attention on something, and the act of over-focusing our attention drives our brain further out of balance, right? We start revving it up into more aroused states. The answer will never be there because that person's thinking in the known. They're thinking in the box. If they say, okay, for the next 5 days, I'm just going to follow the instructions, I'm just going to change. And they stop. Our data shows that you can shut this thing off. We know how to do it so well. You can do it so well that you can do it with your eyes open. In other words, the critic in your mind that's saying it'll never happen, it's too hard, start tomorrow, all that stuff, that voice is gone. Not only during the meditation, but when the person opens their eyes after a 7-day event, their brain is still in that present moment state, right? It's not trying to predict anything. It's called the default mode network in the brain. And the paper that you were talking about that we're super excited about, it was published in a Nature journal. It was communications biology. It's been super, super popular, amongst the scientific community, because we did fMRI studies on advanced meditators and novice meditators.
Is this the UC San Diego study or a different one?
Yeah, the UC San Diego study. So we were doing an event in San Diego, and the university is right there. So we were taking participants, bringing them up to the fMRI lab, and we were getting a baseline. We had, put them in the fMRI machine, and we kind of looked at their brains before they started the event, and then we put them in a 7-day immersive experience of change and transformation. And at the end of the 7 days, we wanted to see how much their brains changed. And we had no idea that we would see these kind of dramatic changes in 7 days, which is really insane. But the default mode network in the brain's predictor. It's always trying to predict the future based on the past. And it's not like, a great example of a predictive model is if I throw a ball, you don't react to it, you just predict where it's going to go, right? And that's how we live our life. Yeah. The brain is predicting just like that. It's a prediction machine. It's an anticipation machine. And when it's really busy trying to anticipate the future based on the past, it consumes an enormous amount of brain energy. Like it really consumes almost all the brain's energy, right? Because we have to be able to predict the next moment creates safety, right? And when you feel safe, then, right, you can relax. So it turns out that most people's default modes are on high gear. That's the voice and the chatter in their head that's always trying to get away from, whatever, something important to them. So the default mode network and the salience network, which are two important networks in the brain, by the end of 7 days in both novice and advanced meditators, were completely dialed down. And there's an enormous amount of energy left in the brain, right? Because if it's consuming that amount, it could be used for other things. The degree of change that took place in the default mode network looks just like a person who's on psilocybin. Because psilocybin actually shuts the default mode network off in the brain.
Okay.
But the participants were doing that without taking any exogenous substances. In other words, by wrestling for the present moment and being uncompromising and working with catching themselves thinking certain thoughts, catching themselves feeling aroused and impatient and settling the body down and working like that, and catching themselves going to a predictable future and bringing themselves back to the present moment. The act of doing that sooner or later dialed that whole system way, way down to such a degree that the person looked like they were taking an exogenous substance.
This is what I love about the work you're doing and the research backing it. Because what I have here in front of me says that these brain scans from your retreats are now showing the same neural activity previously only documented with people taking these types of psychedelics.
Yes.
And so what is meditation actually doing to the brain that we previously didn't know that is making it feel like it's on psychedelics?
Yeah. Well, we're super interested in that principle because we're seeing more and more people reach certain brainwave states where they have a transcendental experience. In other words, we're perceiving less than 1% of reality. We're basically looking at the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, violet, the spectrum of light, visible light, and the whole electromagnetic spectrum. That's the only thing that we're perceiving that's bouncing off the most stable form of energy called matter, right? Fooling us into this kind of illusion of this simulation, right?
This 3D world.
Right, this 3D world. So there's probably more information in the immaterial than there is in the material.
Right.
And the probability then that we're perceiving the truth of reality is zero. It's zero because our brain is not molded. It's not shaped. It's not, the circuits are not there to perceive anything else but the material world. And if you're living for generations untold in survival, when your hormones of stress and survival are switched on, we become materialists and we now are focused on the cause. So if you're looking for food, or if you're facing off with a predator, you got to run from one point to another point, all of your attention is on matter. So through generations, the brain has kind of edited out energy and frequency other than that frequency band of light, right? So when people have these transcendental experiences, they're seeing beyond the veil of that very small percentage of reality and seeing more of the reality that exists that's in the immaterial than in the material beyond our senses, right?
Before you go on there, for someone watching or listening right now who just thinks, come on, Dr. Joe, this is a little too much for me. Like, we live in the material world. I've got to go from point A to point B. It's taken me a decade to get to this stage in my career. You know, breakdowns happen, bad things happen. Like, we're all victims here. We're all victims to life circumstances, to the government, to our boss, to our spouse. Is there really something else than matter?
Well, I think people who do psychedelics, I just don't believe you have to do psychedelics to have that experience.
For me, I have felt the healing power of allowing my heart to calm itself down and my mind to be in coherence with my heart, the way you teach it in your retreats, and how it allows me to have more creative energy, more energy to be graceful and compassionate towards people than when maybe I used to be resistant and frustrated and angry, more capacity to respond differently. It doesn't mean I'm perfect all the time. I'm still a driven human being, but it's like, it allows me to think a lot better.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens when the surgery didn't work and the chemo didn't work and the radiation didn't work and the ketogenic diet didn't work and the vegan, gluten-free, organic diet, raw diet didn't work and all the other things didn't
still
work.
have complications.
Yeah. Because chronic health conditions require a lifestyle change. And nothing changes in our life until we change, right? So the person who's going to make a different choice and begin to do different things and create different experiences and feel different emotions and change the way they think and believe, those are the ones that on a more probable than not basis are going to heal and change. And what our data shows, that if you decide to make a change and immerse yourself in it for full on for 7 days, I could say this is what our data says. I'm not saying this.
That's what the research
This is what the
scientists are
research
saying.
says. Research says your nervous system can manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals that works 3 times better than any drug. That's what our data shows.
Wow. 3 times?
Yeah, so a great drug trial, right? A great drug study is about between 18 and 25%. Every now and then you get a drug where it's 30%, but 25 is a good measure. 1 out of 4 people.
Where it works, it's effective
Right.
30% of the time.
Yeah, 1 out of 4 people. Just make it simple.
Okay.
So in our 7-day events, at the end of 7 days, just take this as an example. Everybody has their own genotype, and genes make proteins. Your genotype's different than mine based on our culture, based on our ancestors, all of that. Race, countries. But if genes make proteins and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of your body, at the end of 7 days, when we look at everybody with their own individual genotypes, at the end of 7 days, 80% of the population is expressing the same genes and making the same proteins. What does that mean? 80%. That means the flock, the tribe, the herd. There's an emergent consciousness that's happening when people think differently, when they act differently, and they feel differently. That's literally being reflected in their biology. 80%. If we do a study on advanced meditators and we take their plasma and we put it in the presence of different cancer cells, 84% of the people that are advanced meditators have factors in their blood that stop cancer from multiplying and moving. That's a very high percentage. It takes 70% of the mitochondrial function out of the cell. If we do a study on pain, right? 63 different diseases people come to our workshops for, 63 different chronic health conditions. What we see, it's unanimous across the board. At the end of 7 days, their pain levels are gone or diminished quite a bit, independent of their disease, and they have more energy, right? They have less fatigue. So we said, okay, so what does that mean? If they're having less pain, whether they have anxiety, depression, PTSD, cancer, MS, lupus, Parkinson's, doesn't matter. One intervention, not like there's no one drug that works for all those, takes pain away for all those different diseases. One intervention is taking away pain in 63 different diseases. So we're sitting around talking with the scientists, and the next question is it possible? Is it possible, independent of their health condition, that they're manufacturing their own endogenous opioids, their own natural pharmacy of morphines, their own natural pharmacy of pain relievers? Okay, now take a guess of what the percentage was. Remember, drug studies, 25%.
So of how many people coming after 7 days are creating
their own endogenous opioids,
so
their own natural
their own
pharmacy of anti-pain chemicals.
What's the percentage? I don't know, 70, 80%, 90?
100%.
So
100% of the people, right?
So 100% of the people coming in after 7 days of meditation.
Yeah, the 100% of the people that we measured, then they all were, in fact, one particular endogenous opioid called dynorphin was at such high quantities that we had to dilute the substance to be able to measure it, because that's the intelligence of the body. So when I say the nervous system can manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals that works 3 times better than any drug, at our very least, 3 times better would be 75%, right? Mm-hmm. But when we look at our community, it's when we're measuring different things, different factors, it's 80%, it's 84%, it's 95%, it's 100%, right? So the probability of that happening to you is very high. And we're not studying people that have been dedicating 40 years of their life to meditation or prayer. These are people that we've finally, through all of our research, figured out a formula. And if you could follow that formula, you'll notice that you'll start changing, right? And that's the important point.
I mean, this whole concept of the internal pharmacy to create pain relief, again, you're talking about the research that's revealed that the body has what you call this internal pharmacy. If someone has been on medication to minimize their pain or just manage their pain that they've had for years, or they have to take medication in order to have a sense of relief of the pain they're feeling in their body, what does someone need to do to activate their internal pharmacy without pain medication, external medication? Like, what does someone need to do at home to activate their internal pharmacy to create pain relief right now?
Yeah.
If they don't have 7 days.
Let me say this, that I would never tell a person to come off their pain medication. What typically happens for most people is they feel so good that they realize they don't need it anymore.
They forget to take it. Yeah.
They forget to take it, or they just outgrow it. They have something, like we hear testimonial after testimonial. A lot of people say just something switched on. Like I just felt something, like I came back online, like I switched on. So first of all, the first step, of course, is that we've been programmed into something else. We've not been programmed into the understanding that your body has the innate capacity to produce the pharmacology of chemicals that could heal you, right? It's not in our belief system. We've been conditioned into believing if you take some exogenous substance and the moment you take it and it takes away your pain, the moment you notice that that pain goes away, you remember what caused it. So the next time you feel that discomfort, the next time you feel that pain, your brain automatically craves that image to take away the pain. And so we become dependent on certain things.
We've also, there's tons of research of placebo effect of people taking a sugar pill or some other neutral tablet for pain relief, and it giving them that relief at the same time, even though it had none of the chemicals that were supposed to give that relief, correct?
No, this is 100% true. In fact, I wrote a book about it. and
you are the placebo.
Right. And it's kind of I was so mad at myself for so long, because if you think about it, how can you give someone a sugar pill, a saline injection, or perform some false sham surgery or procedure? And a certain percentage of those people will accept, believe, and surrender to the thought without any analysis that they're actually getting the real substance or treatment, and they begin to program their autonomic nervous system to manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals equal to the substance they think they're taking. So was it the inert substance that was healing them, or were they healing by thought alone? So my thing is, why do you need a placebo? If you understand the mechanisms of how that occurs, can you teach people actually how to do that on command? And the answer is yes. We've done research where we've taken people, they have no idea what the name of the gene, they could barely pronounce it. We show them the picture of these quaternary structures of these proteins that these genes make. Their critical analytical thinking mind has no idea how many amino acids they're made of, what the sequence of the amino acids are, has no idea the atomic weight, the structure. All they need is the name. If we get them in the right state of mind, in the right state of body, and the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information, would their intention to regulate that gene, to make that protein, could they use intention, and could intention serve as information to actually signal that gene? Okay, you ready? 100% of the people in the first study, okay? In the second study, it was about 95%. Wow. They regulated the gene.
Just from thought alone.
By thought alone. So now think about this. Genes
not taking proteins. A pill, not taking medicine,
right. So this is not for everybody. So for a person who really wants to understand this, there's a lot of learning that has to go on. And that's what we did with our paper. We wanted to make sure, and this is what I do with my workshops. I want to challenge your current beliefs, and you got to reconceptualize certain things again, because it's so much easier to forget it than to remember it, right? So it takes constant review and rehearsal and thinking about it. And that's what we do. We teach people information. They got to teach it back to the person next to them. They got to get it wired in the brain. They got to understand the what and the why. So the how is instrumental, right? So they can assign meaning behind the act. So a person who truly wants to heal and change, and by the way, we've had so many people in the last 5 years never even make it to a week-long event. Just grab a book and read it, or do the online course, do the meditations, and, show up and not have Parkinson's disease, or show up and not have cancer anymore, or show up and not have a certain health condition, or become abundant, or whatever it was. So people are teaching themselves how to do it, but I would never, ever, ever ask a person to step into the experience without the knowledge first. I really think knowledge is the forerunner, right? And the more knowledge that we have and understand, the more we can assign meaning when it comes to doing something with it. So if a person really says, you know what? I saw the data. Like if he's saying that, I went and looked up the article, and it looks like they're actually making their own pharmacy of chemicals. If there are other people are doing it, of all ages, of all races, of all sizes and shapes and cultures, all diets, I can do it too, right? And that's how new consciousness is reflected in the collective, right? So a person who really wants to do this, they just need the knowledge and the information and the curiosity.
Yeah.
We study the language of transformation, and curiosity is the big one. When you come in curious, like I'm curious, and then curiosity leads to the challenge, right? Because now once you got it up there, now you know the challenge is that somehow you got to change, and really nobody changes unless they're challenged, right? I mean, that's the way it is. So then there's the challenge of the wrestling of their old belief and the new belief. This is how change happens. And it's
painful.
It's painful. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. It takes a lot to get out of those programs, to disinvest out of those programs. Takes energy and awareness. But the act of doing that enough times then all of a sudden causes the person really to no longer believe in that and start to believe in something else. Now, if you're constantly revising the model, experience is the greatest professor. Keep asking the person to go into the experience, have the experience, learn from the experience, evolve your experience, and over time, you start feeling better. Now, we didn't say, go make your own endogenous opioids. That was just the side effect of a person no longer tormenting themselves
Living
by
in the past.
complaining
Yeah,
and
yeah.
blaming and feeling pain and feeling suffering. The body was relieved. The pain is the past, right? The body's out of the past, and now it's liberated. It's free, right?
Can the body be in pain thinking about the future?
It does it all the time. I mean, when you're in stress, what do? Always we go to the worst case scenario. We always go to the worst case scenario because if you can prepare for the worst, if anything less happens, you have a better chance of living and surviving, right? And it's all about staying alive.
So I've heard you say, a lot of the pain comes from the memory of the past and holding on to that memory of who hurt you or what went wrong or the shame you had around something you did to someone else, whatever it might be, or that accident I had or whatever it might be. But it's also pain is caused by thinking about the unknown of the future.
Oh, absolutely. You could think about some worst case scenario and fixate on that stream of consciousness to such a degree that your inner world becomes more real than your outer world, whatever that worst case scenario is, and you'll actually feel the emotion of that future before it happens. You feel the anxiety, you feel the fear, you feel the worry, and the body's getting a rush of adrenaline, it's getting agitated, and you're conditioning the body to become the mind of fear. And that's how people have panic attacks. Do it enough times, it's so conditioned the body will have a panic attack without your conscious mind. Try as you may to control it with your conscious mind. You can't. You programmed it subconsciously, right? And so many people wind up suffering about and imagining a life that never really happens, but they're living it every day until something finally does happen, right?
The School of Greatness is brought to you in partnership with Airbnb. With the FIFA World Cup 2026 coming, there are going to be thousands of fans traveling into cities all across the country. And it's such a cool opportunity to open your home, make some extra income, and be a part of something global. Personally, I started hosting my properties on Airbnb because I wanted a simple way to create extra income, but what I didn't expect was how meaningful the experience would be. You're not just offering a place to stay, you're welcoming people into your world. It's so cool. And one of my favorite things is being able to share the local spots that I love, great places that you can eat, places where you can move your body, and things that make the city feel alive. It becomes more than just a visit for them. It becomes an experience. And during something like the FIFA World Cup, that energy is on a whole different level. You get to be a part of that excitement and create real connections with people from all over the world. And if you've ever thought about hosting, this summer is a great time as we welcome FIFA World Cup fans. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
I just did a speech at a mastermind event a few weeks ago of a lot of top entrepreneurs, those that are doing, 7 figures in their business and more. These are successful people who have accomplished a certain amount in their career or their business. But even at that stage, there was a group of people. I said, raise your hand if you've had a dream to write a book or launch a new project or a show or something creative you wanted to do, but you've been thinking about for over a year. And most of the room had their hand raised. And I go, keep your hand raised if you've been thinking about launching this book or this idea for 5 years. And still a lot of the room had it raised. And I go, keep your hand raised if you thought about this for 10 years. Not as many, but still people have their hand raised that they've been thinking about doing this dream, this idea, this project, this thing that they wanted to put themselves out there in a bigger way. And these were successful individuals, but so many of them had this fear of the future of it not working out and not being as big of a success as the previous thing, or whatever reason. Why do so many people who are also successful struggle at putting themselves out there, of creating their dream, launching the project, doing something new? Why do so many people struggle or suffer by not taking action of that thing they really want to do? And they wait for years.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the same thing with change, And people who say one day I'm going to change or I'll change tomorrow, they're in a program, right? So more than likely, the person hasn't just carved out the passion, but the ingredient that brings something to life, because we study this now, is really the excitement of that vision. You can have that vision, and if it's sterile without the excitement, there's no energy to move towards it. But nobody's going to create that excitement but you. I mean, no one's coming for you. No one's going to come for you and say that. And like a person who just says, oh my God, I saw the vision. Whoa, like I am so excited. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's no longer a have to.
It's happening.
They're already living in that future, right? The thing is that we have to keep it alive.
Yeah. What if you have
day.
excitement, but the fear is greater than the excitement?
Then you'll never change.
Yeah.
You'll never change.
So the fear has to be, like, there might be some anxiety or some, worry. Is this going to work?
Choice. It's just a choice. But when you make a choice to change, and you have that decision, and that decision carries an amplitude of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional conditioning in your body, so that the body responds to a new mind. The choice that you make in that moment arouses the body to feel the emotion of that future before it happens. The stronger the emotion you feel, the more you remember that choice. And in a sense, you're giving your body a sampling, a taste of the future emotionally. And so many people say, I can remember the moment I made up my mind to change. I can tell you exactly where I was, what time of day it was, who I was with, because the event became a long-term memory, right? So the stronger the emotion we feel to some trauma in our life, the more we pay attention to it, the more we brand that in our brain and body as a long-term memory. Now, the person's doing that by thought alone. So if they can't come out of their resting state, then in a sense, it's not that they're lying to themselves. The body just knows they're not going to do it. And so the body can say, stay on the couch, watch one more round of Netflix, watch one more show.
Have some more ice cream.
Have a little ice cream, yeah. Get to it tomorrow, you're doing great, But that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if a person truly wants to actualize their dream, they got to be possessed by it. I mean, to such a degree.
Obsessed.
Possessed, like it's on their mind all the time, not like I have to. It's just like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this. And I've seen people in our work create enormous abundance. The moment they locked in, they were just like, oh, I knew it. Like the body got it, right? The body was getting the taste of the future. And then all they had to do was keep that feeling going every day, because it was that energy, that excitement that was driving them to get out of bed and make a different choice, even though they didn't want to. And when we make those choices, in spite of those voices over and over again, the voices go away. And whether you're becoming a champion in handball, or whether you're being a father, or whatever it is that you make up your mind to do, if you really make up your mind to do that, you got to make a different choice, a lot of different choices. And those choices lead to different behaviors. And that's how you change.
Let me ask you a question. If you're able to coach me, use me as an example. I've had this dream. I've told you about this. I've had this dream to be an Olympian, to be an Olympic athlete playing with USA team handball in Los Angeles in less than 2.5 years away, right? And I've been clear about this dream for the last 18 years once I got into the sport. And I moved to new cities. I went to different countries. I've traveled the world playing this sport. I've moved all my time and energy around making it happen to get on the USA national team, staying on the team for a decade. Then life happened and I got off track for a few years, but now I've been back for the last few years, reorganizing my time and setting my life up in a way to get myself to the Olympics as an athlete in 2028. Now I get goosebumps just thinking about it and saying it. I feel it in my body. I feel excited. I see myself on the bench, coming off the bench, scoring a goal. I see myself singing the national anthem in front of 30,000 people. I feel it. I feel like all the things that I've had to overcome to get there and the obstacles in my way that were just like, I'm excited about these obstacles because it's just helping me grow into changing and developing into the person I need to be to make this thing happen. But I also know it's not guaranteed. Like tomorrow's not guaranteed. I may not be here. Like whatever reason, there might be a reason why I'm not on the team. I also have that understanding that you can set an intention for a big goal, a big dream. I want to hit this much in sales or make this much or have this type of thing. And you could feel it and it still may not happen, or it may look different than what you originally envisioned, right? It maybe something better happens. Maybe it's like life happens in some other way. Could you coach me as an example for anyone else who has a big dream 2, 4, 10 years away that they're excited about? They're organizing their life. They're planning. They're taking the daily actions. They're letting go of the old self and stepping into that new self that actualizes that goal and dream. Could you coach me on the process if there's anything that might be limiting me from holding me back from creating this? Is it even silly for me to say, well, maybe it won't happen? Like even remove that thought? Should I let that go and say it's happening no matter what? Like how should I be interpreting and thinking about this while I'm taking the actions, I'm doing the right steps, I'm embodying the emotion, I'm visualizing, I'm all those things I'm doing, but is there anything I'm doing wrong?
Well, first of all, I think you're doing a lot of things right.
Okay, that's good.
Just because just your body language in general and just your enthusiasm and theos filled with God. You're the idea of that future is so amazing that you're experiencing it right now. Right?
Yeah, I get chills when I think about it.
Yeah, that's exactly the body responding to the mind, right? And so I think it's really healthy. I think everything you're doing is really great. There's always that one catch of like, what if it isn't the truth? Like, what if I love this stuff and what if it doesn't work? It's a really tough one. I face that a lot too.
Really?
Yeah. But like, what's the alternative? The alternative is you're not going to play small at this point.
I'm not.
You're not.
I'm all in.
So I always ask myself, what is that point where everybody else stops? Wherever that point is, I'm going to go past that point. Because if I can go past that point where everybody stops, I'm going to have a lot of trust in myself, a lot of belief in myself, right? So, and your belief in yourself has to be earned, right? You have to earn that.
Yes. You can't fake it.
You can't. You got to show up enough times where you start feeling pretty worthy, right? And, there's limitations with talent and skill and all that, all that stuff, age, all those things are factors. But if you're doing everything that you're doing the way you're doing it right now, I think it's also really healthy to be totally resolved if it doesn't happen. Because if you're resolved if it doesn't happen, then you could say, that was a great ride. Like, I would never be this guy, right? And then, of course, as you said, I always leave that door open for like, okay, that didn't happen, but wow, this happened, and it happened in a way that I'd never thought of, right? I'd never expected.
Some people might think about this and say, okay, you have to obsess about the goal, the dream, the outcome that you want to create, whether it's a year away or 10 years away. But if it doesn't happen and you're obsessed about it, are you crushed? Is like your life over? Some people may not be prepared for when it doesn't happen.
It's never over.
Yeah.
It's never over.
So how do you in your mind have all the excitement, all the joy, all the anticipation, feel the feelings, think things, do the actions, but then is there also 1% of you saying, but this may not happen and that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's how you interpret it?
Yeah. But I mean, that is not a voice that I'm going to allow to dominate my mind.
So it's not going to be a 99% of the time.
It's a healthy voice that like, Joe, you're going to go as hard as you can. You're going to go all in. You're going to make something that you're going to enjoy doing.
Yes.
And your goal is realistic and you can get there and just keep going past that point where you normally stop. Put in a little extra time, work a little harder, feel good about it. And you may arrive and you may not. And if you don't, be okay with it, but we're focusing on this as an outcome.
So you have that thought as well sometimes.
Of course, but what's taken me the longest time is to try to no longer try to control the outcome. And so we have to lay down the very thing we've done our whole life to get what we want for something else to happen, and that's not that easy, right?
So what's the difference between trying to control the outcome and doing everything you can to create the outcome and also surrendering to what happened?
Yeah, I think when you get to a point where you're satisfied with yourself, it's really easy to surrender. And
how do you know if you're satisfied or if that's the point where you usually stop and everyone stops and you need to continue?
I mean, you know what that point is.
Okay.
You always know what that point is, where you went, wow, I would have never pushed myself this hard today. I'm so glad I showed up. I'm really happy with my effort. Let me just review what I did well. I want to do that again. Catalog that in there, rehearse it a few times, and then go out and enjoy your day. And I think surrender is not something that you ever finish with. I think it's an ongoing process. My understanding of surrender today is very different than it was a year ago, because it's an ongoing process of letting go, right?
What have you had to surrender to in your life recently?
No, I mean, it's always a constant process of trusting the unknown. And if I start getting in the way, especially if I'm in the creative process, and sometimes if I try to direct it, it doesn't always work for me. So I have to be 1 foot in the real world and 1 foot in the quantum world. I got to straddle both worlds. So
what does that look like? 1 foot in the real world and 1 foot in the quantum world.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're going to get up and you're going to go to work. You're going to be kind to people. You're going to be caring. You're going to be in good spirits. You're going to do your absolute best. You're going to do all the things that make you a great person. And, there's a lot of things you have to do in life. We're in a plane of demonstration. We do, right? But if you're creating in your meditations and you're creating from the field, you're trying to expedite the distance between the thought of what you want and the experience of having it. That's why we create from the field, right? So the synchronicities and the opportunities that start showing up should be working along with you stepping into that future. In other words, you're not going to be a great handball player unless you show up for practice.
That's true.
I mean, I had friends in college that applied every year to be an astronaut. And I say to them, they're never going to pick you. You don't know the first thing about aerospace, but they did it anyway because they love doing it, right? So there's a reality check here where you got to work hard. That's the 3D world. You got to still show up. You still got to change diapers. You still got to do things, right?
Yeah.
And that's the 3D world. But you do it with grace. You do it with respect. You do it with honor. You do it with dignity. You do it in a certain state and with love. And then you create from the field, and that's where you're looking at the experiment, how much of the experiment you could actually prove to be true for yourself, right? And that's the fun part. So nothing is ever lost in that process, because a person who dedicates their life to something like that and goes all in and gets to a certain point and they make it, or they get to a certain point that's just shy of it, if the person is astute in life, they'll use that same thing to create something even greater in their life, greater than the dream that they had right there, and they'll expedite the outcome in a shorter amount of time. So in the light of all eternity, every religion says we're eternal except for maybe a few. Consciousness never dies because energy never does. You're going to be around a long time, so how many experiences could you have, right? So what's the rush, right? I think it's what you're doing is there's a healthy, immersive way to do it, and the resolve is with yourself, and the resolve is I've given my absolute best.
Gotcha.
And if you resolve that way, you feel satisfied that way. Somehow we let go of how it's going to happen, and when we let go of how it's going to happen, it happens in a new way. And sometimes it's really surprising, which it should be, right?
Yeah. And so, do you ever have self-doubt then? Does the voices in your head, when you have some crazy big idea, do you ever say, maybe you've gone a little extra far this one, Dr. J? What do you think? Okay, you've been able to create this, but that is just so unrealistic. Like, have you ever thought that?
Well, two things about that. In the work that we do in the events, I always want to be methodical. I want a person to heal themselves first. If they heal themselves, they can heal another person. If they heal another person, then there's other things they can heal another person remotely, which we've seen. So these are new experiences that are new opportunities in the field that, many people may not ever embrace. But I never want to stretch them to such a point where there's a big gap between their current understanding and this idea of something really amazing without filling that space with information and knowledge. I doubt when I don't have the substantial and important information enough to solidify that belief. Because if I start doubting, then I'm either living in the emotion of the past, and if I am, I can't see that future because that future has a different emotion, right? So I got to work my way back into that state. And let's not make this be about me, because there have been hundreds, if not thousands of people that have healed in this work, and they've done their meditations sometimes 3 times a day. And why were they doing them 3 times a day? Because they started doubting again.
Mm.
And they started disbelieving again, and they started feeling the emotions of doubt. And instead of staying there, they went back down and they changed their emotional state. And they got up after that meditation, believing in themselves and believing in their future again. And that is exactly the overcoming process that leads to the becoming process. So we're always going to come up against our disbelief. Our chronic disbelief will always be there. You'll know it'll be there the moment you make up your mind to change. It'll just go, okay, Lewis, here we go. I'm going to show you a few of those that have been sitting in there, that have been keeping you in the known. You stepping out in the unknown, this can't happen, and all of that.
Right.
And those are the barriers that have people return back to the known. It feels right to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we should come across those beliefs because we can stop believing that and start believing in something else. I mean, and my belief, even in the last 5 years, in the last 2 years, has changed in what's possible for human beings. By far, just sort of unbelievable things happening.
With new beliefs coming to you of what's possible, what have been the challenges, the old beliefs that have tried to get in your way personally?
I would probably say, if it happened once, could it happen again? Right? I mean, we had a couple people regrow organs and tissues. So that's not
organs.
Something. Yeah,
You regrew them.
Yeah, that were surgically removed.
Wow.
Well, that's not something that I like to say publicly.
Really?
Too many times, but it means the human body has the innate capacity to regenerate itself at any age if it's given the right information.
Wow.
That's not part of our programming, right? So that's something I had to watch that testimonial 50 times in a row because it was going so against my belief, right? So I am hoping there's always a belief that I come up against. If I'm truly in the game of evolution, there should be another belief that says I can't or that's not possible until someone does it. And, if someone does it once, there's a footprint in consciousness that a person grows their thyroid back. It's not common that you go to your doctor and they remove your thyroid and then they do the ultrasound and there's a thyroid there. It's unbelievable.
It's the 4-minute mile.
And a 4-minute mile, once it was broken 2 weeks later, and then 13,
hundreds of times.
Thousands.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the same thing with our people who create abundance, people who create changes in chronic, serious stage 4 cancers and health conditions, blindness, deafness, whatever. They pop through a certain level of consciousness or unconsciousness, and the collective is observing the person on the stage telling the story. And when they see the person telling the story and they don't look particularly fit or particularly young or dressed very well or buffed, or they just look like someone at Whole Foods, just you would pass by, but they don't have Parkinson's disease anymore, or they don't need a colon bag anymore. They're living their life. So I think that is what causes the collective to see a possibility in reality. And now it's amongst the collective's consciousnss, and the probability of it happening again is greater. So that's why we see some people when we're at events we had 5 people with Raynaud's syndrome at one event in Europe, where you lose the feeling in your fingers and they're sensitized to cold. 5 people at one event because one person stood up and healed, 4 other people healed. We had 5 people step out of a wheelchair in Denver. It's just not something you see, but when one person does it,
creates a belief.
Yeah, and the belief is not just an intellectual thing. There's the energy that goes with that belief, and that is the energy that's causing them to believe in that future. I always want my beliefs challenged, and because I think it's really healthy, because I'm aware of things that I would have never been aware of before.
I think a lot of people watching or listening, if they've seen your work on here or somewhere else before, they might believe, or they might have experienced that meditation has worked for them and allowing them to get some pain relief. They've had some relief. Maybe they even had a full healing. But for those maybe who are new watching, I don't know if a lot of people have the belief that meditation is something that can heal you alone, that there has to be something external that you take to help you relieve pain. But for those watching who have never meditated before, or even those who've meditated for themselves, is it possible to learn how to heal yourself and then heal others?
Yeah, the answer is yes. We see it all the time.
But for someone who's never thought that's possible, unless they were some spiritual guru or Jesus or someone who's like been given the gift, the hand of God to heal people. Can regular, everyday people learn how to heal someone else?
Yeah. The answer is absolutely yes.
How is that possible?
I know. Well, of course, it takes knowledge and information. I mean, it takes you have to build a model based on science. As an example, there is a field. You ask any quantum physicist, a theoretical physicist from Cambridge, anywhere, they'll tell you there's this invisible field. They'll tell you it's kind of like a liquid. You can't see it. And just like waves on the ocean, there are waves that move between us, and those waves carry information, and particles are just bundled up clusters of those waves interfering with each other. And if you look at the very, 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 very anatomy of a particle, it's energy. So it's all energy. You're energy, I'm energy, but we're again, gravitationally organized energy, right? So if there's a field between us and information travels between us, can we jiggle that field? Can we create information in that field that could begin to change matter? And the data actually shows that it's not matter that's creating a field, it's the field that's creating matter. If you change the information in the field, and if you change enough information in the field with brain and heart coherence, you're creating patterns of order that will slow down and change the destiny of matter. So once again, you don't start your 7-day advanced retreat with the understanding that you're going to do a healing on the first day. There's a lot of information that has to be built into our biology. There's a lot of experiences that have to take place. But the greatest changes that we see biologically across the chart, when we look at our data, is when people are healing other people. Both, listen, in the healers
themselves,
and the healers as well as the healees. I mean, we have numerous people that are involved in healing that have healed themselves from all kinds of health conditions. We could show video after video of people who have.
While they're putting the energy towards healing someone else who has a physical pain or some type of condition, and they're actually getting the same, if not greater, healing benefit by creating healing for somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. But so we have these machines that are in the ballroom. They're called the random event generators, right? They're very sophisticated coin tosses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
50-50 coin flip.
50-50. 0, 1, 0, 1. It's quantum tunneling. Certain particles make it through, others don't. Well, they're stacked on top of each other, and they're tossing a coin about 1,000 times a second, right?
A second?
Yeah, so the more you toss a coin, the more over time it's going to be 50-50, right? It's just going to be 50% heads, 50% tails. No one's in the room. You see this random 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, like that. But it's 50-50, right? It's random. Random means you can't predict it. So during the coherence healings, remember, collective networks of observers determine reality. It's not the number of people. It's not the amount of energy. It's the most coherent signature.
It could be 2 people. It doesn't mean to be thousands of people.
Yeah, but you have 2,000 people in a room.
Yeah.
Everybody has brain coherence and heart coherence by the end of the event. That means they can jiggle the jello really well, right? And when we do these coherence healings, we discover that when it's no longer about you and it's about somebody else, you're going to give way more than you've ever given before.
Oh my gosh.
And those machines that shoot zeros and ones all of a sudden go 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. They go right outside of normal. In other words, random events are no longer random and highly orderly. Okay, now here's the crazy part.
Oh my God.
It happens almost every single time we do coherence healings. Those random machines that are programmed. Machines that are programmed in the material world to throw ones and zeros, some external force is influencing that machine. So if we take that machine now, we put 5 of them in the room or 4 of them in the room, we covered one in a Faraday cage, nickel and copper and lead, so that no electromagnetism can get in there. That one machine behaves as if nobody's in the room while all the other ones are behaving.
Really?
So we know that there's some field effect that's taking place. Now, it goes a step further, because we just published a paper in Explore magazine just a month or so ago, 2 months ago. And what we discovered is that in all the other random event machines that are placed around the globe in different cities, the pulse that's being created in that room with a certain signature, when all those random ones are randomly no longer in any relationship with each one, throwing their own zeros and ones, at the exact moment we create the signature in the ballroom, all of those other machines mimic that signature
Come
in a very
on.
non-local
No
way.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, these are your machines that you place in different places, not just
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Really?
there's a non-local communication
Wow.
that's taking place globally in the Earth's field when collective networks of observers do something altruistic to give life to another person's life
This is crazy.
or love them into life, however you want to say it. And so then what we discovered biologically, which is super insane, is that when the person is administering the healing, like we do groups of about 6 or 8, right? And you have to get your heart coherent because a coherent heart produces a magnetic field. And when energy makes it to the heart, it goes to the brain. You got to get a coherent brain. And then you place your hands into the field of that person. If that person's field is coherent, the patterns that are created from their hands are interfering with everybody else's fields and is creating more complex patterns of order. And you're changing the information in the field of the person laying there to a greater level of order. And the hologram, right? The tumor is the illusion. You're creating more order in the field. You should create more wholeness in three-dimensional reality. So during the coherence healings, the majority of people move out of heart coherence at a certain point. That's because their sympathetic nervous system is switching on and they're getting really aroused. And the arousal is not fear. The arousal is not pain. The arousal is not aggression. The arousal is ecstasy. So in the act of healing another person,
They feel the
energy, to do something unlimited, you got to feel pretty unlimited, right? And so the energy in the room is absolutely insane. And I've been at every healing. And I could walk out and the hair on my back of my neck, when I walk out, the field in the room is so electrostatic that it feels like lightning is going to strike. And the more synchronized the group is, the more closer they are to a greater level of oneness or source, the shorter amount of time it takes place in three-dimensional reality. And we've seen people that have one experience and, their body's completely changed. Yeah.
Wow.
They get an upgrade. So is it possible? It's more than possible. We've seen it happen over and over again. It's so much to the point where it surprises me.
Now, the crazy thing is that someone watching or listening who doesn't believe in this, or who doesn't believe in meditation, or that thinks you need a pharmacy to heal yourself or whatever it might be, that you've demonstrated this many times over and over. And lots of people continue to demonstrate this on their own. I've seen this. I've been at one of your retreats and I've seen this myself. And it's fascinating. But also you just feel empowered. You feel abundant. You feel alive, right? And it's hard to resist it. It's really hard to go against the feeling of energy. But some people maybe watching or listening might say, okay, maybe I could see that as a possibility where you could rub your hands together and think and feel a certain way and put it over someone. And maybe there'd be an energy field that could help them feel a little bit more energy. Okay, maybe they could buy that. But is it possible with your thought to heal someone in a different location in the world?
Okay, so I'm going to answer these two questions. There's two questions in there. So I don't want to minimize the explanation that I gave for the coherence healings, because it does take a little bit of training.
Yes.
It does take some knowledge. I talk about research that was done at Yale University, talk about this kind of electric field that is now becoming part of biology, information biology. It's not woo-woo wells in space, it's the truth, right? So we have to build a model where a person's level of understanding is really clear enough that they understand that they could actually change information in the field with brain and heart coherence.
They need to know it analytically and then feel it with belief also.
And they've had it gone through a certain amount of training, right? We don't do this at the beginning of the event. We do it at the end when people are really super tuned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did an experiment, right? When COVID happened, we couldn't do events, but people still wanted to heal. So a lot of these groups formed where they were doing remote coherence healings. Now, the quantum field is an invisible field of energy. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it, you can't see it. It's beyond our senses that exist. That is real. I know it's hard for people to imagine this. It is absolutely real. And because it is real, we could actually use it or interact with it, right? So if the quantum, everything is connected, there's no separation, do you really need to be in the room to heal a person? Or do you need just a coordinate? Do you need a picture? And that picture could be a target, right? And if you can get to that field, the thought
of that person connects you to that person. And so we have probably close to 17 remote coherence healing groups from different countries around the world that do remote coherence healings. We did a study just recently on people with PTSD. And we did a measurement to determine if they were clinically, diagnosed with PTSD, and then they went through these remote coherence healings. Remember now, they're laying in their bedroom, and there's 70 to 100 healers that are scattered around the world that just have a picture of them. And at the same time, once again, they're not changing the person's body, they're changing information in their field. At the end of this study, 3-month study, 9 out of 10 people that had PTSD no longer had it.
Come on.
9 out of 10, right? So there's no pharmaceutical that works that well. And I said to the researcher,
Were they also doing meditation on their own, or
nothing.
No other interventions? No medicine, no meditation, no.
Right, exactly.
Just other people healing from different coordinates to their energy, but them not also eating differently or sleeping differently.
Nothing different.
Really?
Yeah. And we have other metrics that we're analyzing right now. But I keep saying to the scientists, when in your adult life, when in your career did you ever think you would be studying the effects of remote coherence healings and they're working better than any drug or any therapy? And what does this mean? It means we are connected. We absolutely are connected, because for that person, and we've done so much work with autistic syndrome. We've healed so many children, so many kids with really serious health conditions. And the payoff, Louis, is getting on the Zoom call. They do this once a month, and somebody tells their story. And when you see a mother who's weeping in tears saying, I can't believe my daughter smiling now, and she held my hand in the shower. Oh. And my son is no longer defecating every night when he goes to sleep. He's sleeping through the night. He's taking naps. He wants to make friends. He's no longer having emotional outbursts. He greeted and hugged his dad when he walked in. And she's weeping in joy. The greatest form of gratitude we'll ever experience is when we receive somebody else's gratitude, right?
Yeah.
And so here's a woman who's authentically grateful because you changed her child's life. The experience of doing that for the people who are the healers, they don't need a sports car. They don't need a wardrobe. No. There's no feeling like that, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of where the switch happens, right? Because these people, I've had so many opportunities to speak with them. They say, no, you don't understand. Like, I get so much out of this. Like, I could have had the worst day in the world, and it comes time to heal another person, I can just forget about all of that. It's about somebody else. And they move closer to love, and the experience of healing another person, knowing someone in the tribe, life was changed, and their family's life was changed, and their parents' life was changed, and their friends and their school, everybody changes because one person changes. That's why they do it. They do it for that. And they could be anonymous. They don't really care.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the healer. They're doing that because they know that and seeing a person's life change is another experience in the quantum that brings us closer to the truth.
And I think for someone watching or listening that might think this is crazy, just thinking about it.
It is crazy.
Right? They might, maybe they think it is, or they say, it's not, show me the proof or show me the evidence. I bet there's a lot of people that have done something good for a stranger, that have helped out at a orphanage or a soup kitchen, or done community service, that felt better after they did that act of service. And they actually felt like, my pain, I don't feel as much pain just by helping another person. By giving and contributing to others. You don't have to be healing other people, but by doing that act, you feel better in general, right? So I think people can understand that they've all done something good for someone else and felt better. And I think if you talk to a lot of people who pray for others that are not in that room, and whether it's their whole community or their church says, we need to pray for this person who's in the hospital, and the whole community is thinking about and putting prayer and healing thought and energy towards that person and bringing them some relief, you hear people saying, wow, I just started feeling better.
Sure. And what's the difference?
Exactly.
I mean, what is the difference? I mean, what is prayer anyway? Isn't that making thought more real than anything else?
Mm-hmm.
And isn't we don't pray in desperation. I
Because if you're going to love another person into life, you got to be in love with life.
Oh, yeah.
That's that's the energy they need. That's why it's sometimes really hard to heal people that we love in our life, because we're so attached, right? We can't get beyond their pain
Yeah.
to be able to change our state to reach that level that has an effect.
So if someone is imagining this scenario where, okay, after 7 days, you're learning the science, you're learning the art of meditation to heal yourself. And then there's an energetic field. I understand this principle of the quantum field, and there's energy that you can't see. And so if there's a group of people putting loving, healing energy over someone else, okay, maybe I could see a world where this works. But that's because you're next to someone and the energy from your body is radiating into the energy of their body and helping them. Like, I'm just thinking of a skeptic. But if you're not close to someone and they're thousands of miles away, how do you transmute that energy from your thought to your body? You're not close to that person to actually influence the energy around them. How does that influence the invisible world of energy around the human being thousands of miles away with just a thought and an intention of love and healing alone?
Yeah, we have to revise our model. You can't use the Newtonian model, the classical model of physics, where there's action-reaction, where things bump together. The quantum is not that way. There's no separation in the quantum. This is not something you get overnight. This is something that you constantly have to think about, constantly have to study. If it is all connected in the quantum, the thought is the experience. Consciousness and energy are one. There's no separation in the quantum. The thought of the person connects you to them immediately. And there's no separation.
No matter where they are in the world.
There's no...
They could be on the moon. They could be on outer space.
They did the aspect experiment. It took two photons or electrons. They had them bond and relate, and then they shot them to opposite ends of the universe, and they annihilated one at the exact same time that they annihilated this one disappeared. Exact same time. Now think about that. If it was a 1 gazillionth of a millisecond less, it still would mean something would have to travel through time, and it would, that fastest it could travel is the speed of light, right? So anything traveling faster than the speed of light, that's material, turns to energy, equals mc squared, right? The rules change in the quantum. It's not the same rules here, right? So if they're disappearing at the same time, it means they're not separate. There's no separation in this field. There's holism here. Everything's related. Everything's connected. And it takes a constant revision of the model. And once the model starts making sense by you understanding it through experience, the more adept that you become. The people that heal, that are part of these groups, they have very little doubt at this point. They don't have a doubt. They've seen too many people that they've worked on and healed change. And I was just watching someone talk about the moment they did the coherence healing on this kid who was in a coma, came out of the coma, like right during the healing.
Really?
So that happens more than once. Yeah. So, and you're seeing children with autism, have a complete reversal in their condition. We're interested in demystifying the process, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the process still works.
Crazy.
Right? And so for the person who has doubt, I would never want to force this down their throat. I would just want to have a conversation just to speculate, is it possible?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it happens once, all right, it happens twice, coincidence, you start seeing it happen hundreds of times, there's a law that's starting to happen. So with our fMRI studies, when it was so revealing to the scientific community to see that default mode network shut off in the brain's predictor, the brain's, anticipation driving, a consumer of energy shut off in the brain to such a degree that when the person finished the 7-day event and they opened their eyes, they still were in that state. And that state is relaxed in the heart and awake in the brain. Mm-hmm. Relaxed and awake instead of stressed out and unconscious and living in a program. Yes. And you can get so good at doing it with your eyes closed, you can do it with your eyes open. And that's when you're less reactive, more tolerant, more patient, more kind, more giving, because nothing in your outer environment is worth you losing this feeling, and so you start to figure that out. So we saw areas of the brain in 7 days actually grow in real estate, like the volume of the brain actually got larger. And so not only making new connections, but making new neurons, right?
The matter of the brain grew.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my gosh. That's
So
crazy.
in 7 days with advanced meditators. So then we were like, okay, if there's new circuitry in there and there's new neurons in their brain, is there factors in the blood? These endogenous chemicals that are like fertilizer, neurotropic factors that grow nerve cells. Turns out that they were manufacturing the very pharmacy of chemicals that causes neurons to grow and sprout in the brain, right? So it's in the blood. There's information in the blood that wasn't there at the beginning of the 7 days that's now there at the end of 7 days. That's pro-life, that's pro-growth, that's flourishing in the brain. Many times the brain becomes very siloed, modulated, compartmentalized as we shift our attention from one person to another problem, to another thing, to another place. Each one of those neural networks are assigned to that person or that object or thing. And as we age, they tend to stop communicating with networks next to each other. They kind of fire on their own. And when we're under stress and we're shifting our attention that quickly, those networks begin to fire really asynchronously, out of order. That's called brain incoherence. Mm-hmm. When the brain's incoherent, we're incoherent, right? And so that's when the person's over-focusing. So in our research after the fMRI studies, we've known this because of our other studies. But what we saw was a massive suppression of these compartmentalizations that were taking place in the brain, and the brain was synchronized. It was working in a more holistic state. In other words, the whole entire brain was working in unison instead of divided. All those networks that were no longer talking to each other were now more whole and more talking to each other, and there was a greater level of order taking place in the brain. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. Now, when a person reaches the state where the default mode network is dialed way down, salience is dialed way down, and they're in this state where there's a greater level of resonance and consciousness in the brain, we discovered that that is the exact state that happens right before the person has a transcendental or a mystical experience. The brain has to be coherent to receive information that's beyond our senses, right? So as compartmentalization goes down and modulation goes down and there's more brain wholeness that takes place, the person is going to then begin to interact with information that's not part of their normal circuitry in three-dimensional reality. And that's when they have that mystical experience. And that's why the brain looks like a lot of times it's on psilocybin, because they're having a transcendental moment that has nothing to do with three-dimensional reality. So if the brain now is no longer using all of its energy to be in the default system, where does that energy go? We look down at the cell, and the cells are processing energy at a way more efficient level. The cell itself is going from using a piece of wood in a fireplace to rocket fuel. And the cells now have more energy for what?
Creation.
Growth and repair.
Yeah.
Growth, repair,
Healing.
exactly. And what you see when that information makes it to the cell, at the same time, there's a massive deconstruction taking place in the cell. And at the same exact time, a massive reconstruction taking place in the cell. So the cell is transmuting and changing because the cell is no longer getting the same information. And so why is this important? It's super important because if people really want to understand that they can change, if they really want to understand that they have a pharmacy of chemicals that they can begin to manufacture by thought alone.
Yes.
The reason that we're doing these research studies is to prove to people that it is possible. So give you an example, like there's a thing called an almetric, and it kind of determines like how popular an article is, right? How many news stations cover it, how many times it's posted or whatever. So a good almetric is like 20, a really good almetric. Ours was 167 for
the research.
This research article. A good article gets about 600 to 900, observations or downloads or accesses. We were up at over 130,000.
Wow.
Because it's such revolutionary information.
People still doubting it in the scientific community when they've seen this paper and the research that shows case after case and study after study within this?
I don't think people really understand what it takes to run these studies. I mean,
it's a lot.
Most studies take about 7 years to publish. We're publishing studies in 2 years, which is insane.
Wow.
Because we have a community of people that are like, draw my blood. Take my gene, describe my genes. Sure, tell me what to do. You'll put a heart monitor on me. Sure, here's my microbiome. I'll spit here, or whatever you need. So we have a huge database, the largest database in the world right now on meditation. So once again, I'm doing all of this to demystify how that person stands on the stage and says, I don't have cancer anymore. I don't have it. There's not any cancer in my body. And they've never meditated before. What happened? So we're using science as a means to show people what's possible.
Yeah. I want people to who are asking about these studies, I want them to go, I think you have them published on your site, or they can have access on your site.
All the articles that we've published are there.
So drjoedispenza.com, if you guys want that information, or we'll try to find those on there and link them up in this episode in the show notes as well, so you can see all these studies, which I think people should go see them. They should be skeptical and go see them. And when they see the results, hopefully it unlocks new belief. It's showing you, oh, this is the new 4-minute mile, right?
Right. And the balance really is, we have great human testimony. Really great story. I mean, we just had 2 great stories of transformation in San Diego. We had one at our last event that was just unbelievable. Pancreatic cancer, complete remission, gone, like in a 1-month period of time. It was really insane. That's evidence. And there's nothing like a good story, right? Yeah. And so the person who's telling that story is telling the truth. And I look out at the audience when that person's on the stage and everybody's leaning in.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, who is this and how did it happen, right? So you got evidence in human testimony, and you have evidence really in our scientific research. And evidence is the loudest voice, right? And now we're discovering like crazy stuff we never expected to discover. Like in our last observation, we started looking at diabetics, right? People who are insulin dependent. And the function of insulin is to take sugar out of the bloodstream and get it into the cell for energy, right? And people who have diabetes, either they're not making the insulin, or their insulin isn't working well enough to be able to deposit it into the cells. So we started looking at diabetics in our 7-day events. And what we discovered is that they were taking sugar out of the body, was taking sugar out of the blood and putting it into the cells, but their insulin levels weren't changing. So what does that mean? That means the body is manufacturing something new.
Interesting.
A new pharmacy of chemicals that's acting just like insulin, even though they're not producing insulin, that's doing exactly what insulin should do, and taking the glucose and putting it in the cell without actually changing insulin. So we're discovering all kinds of factors, that are antiviral, anti-cancer, anti-pain, pro-neurogenic. Our breast milk studies are insane.
Wow.
We can tell you without a doubt that women who meditate, the information that they're giving that child is telling the child no cancer, and you'll heal fast.
Wow.
You'll heal fast. That's what the information in the breast milk of a mother who's connected or who's actually doing the work is giving to the child. The first information the child is getting is you won't get cancer. There's anti-carcinogenic chemicals and very, very healing chemicals, pro-life, pro-growth chemicals. And the breast milk when they started looks nothing like the breast milk when they ended. When they're ended, it's a completely different set of factors in the breast milk.
Oh, man.
It's all information, right? It's all information.
Every time you come on here, I'm always amazed and inspired. Because...
I'm inspired too, and I am amazed because I keep telling the scientists I can't believe it's the truth. I can't believe it.
Have you ever had any of these scientists who are in drug study work stop working in drug study and just focus all on meditation? Or they have to make money still?
No, I think, a couple great things are happening. We are having such great conversations with scientists because, this is not for everybody, and I had to make a choice somewhere in my own personal career where the person who's not going to like me is not going to like me anyway. So why would I want to try to do that? But the people who are interested and people who really want to understand and really want to learn, there's a growing interest. And so when we show our data to scientists, I love looking at their faces because they're like, was this a 1-year study? Is this seeing these epigenetic changes? Their bodies look like they're living in a whole new life, a whole new environment. They've been in a ballroom for 7 days. Are you kidding me? 7 days? Or what? All these thousands of factors that are upregulated in their blood that weren't there before? It's unbelievable, but you can't deny the science, right? It's so obvious. Now, of course, we were always working on making our studies more and more bulletproof. We have to do controls more because everybody, will say, oh, it's a vacation experience. Our data actually shows that vacations, we studied people who come to our events that are on vacation, that their gene expression gets worse, right? And for some people in our events, especially novice meditators, at the end of 7 days, they get a year of their life back. They change their genetic destiny. It's really insane because we have, once again, all the technology to not just look at a few markers. We're talking about the most sophisticated machines to determine, longevity and biological age. So again, when you sit down to do the work, then all of this evidence increases the what and the why for you. And if you're doing it, when you understand the what and the why, you assign meaning to the act. And when you do that, you switch on your prefrontal cortex, and that's the boss in the brain.
Yes.
And it wants an outcome. And that's called intention, right? So when people get that kind of wired in there and they're doing it for abundance, they're doing it for love, they're doing it for the greatest ideal of themselves, they're doing it for wholeness and healing. All those people that healed in our work, you can ask them. They'll tell you, I wasn't doing my meditation to heal. I was doing my meditation to change. And when I change, I heal.
Yes.
And there's the language of transformation we studied is so interesting because when a person truly heals, there's a sense of temporality. Like, I'm not that unhappy guy any longer. I'm not that guy. I'm someone else. The disease belongs to him.
Wow.
Like, I'm a completely different person. Like they've crossed the river of change, And a lot of times when they hit that moment where they connect to something great, because it goes curiosity, challenge, connection, connecting to their heart, connecting to the field, connecting to the work, connecting to a greater understanding, connecting to themselves. There's a moment where it's all integrated and it's all connected. And the connection is both, it's always described as feeling it or felt it. And if you feel something, you had an experience, right? And the experience that feeling tends to be divided into two categories. One, very somatic, like every single cell, every fiber, every atom in my body was oscillating like I got plugged into a light socket. Or the top of my head blew off, my heart turned on like an engine, lightning bolts were shooting out my hands. It's very somatic, right? Yes. And then the other side of that feeling is very emotional. Like, I never felt love. I've never felt love in my life, ever in my life like this love. And I realized it was within me the whole time. Wow. That it's always been there. I've just been unaware of it, right? So that event, when it's both somatic and emotional, changes biology. And there's an instantaneous upgrade, a biological upgrade that goes on in the body because the brain is processing a very high gamma frequency. And that gamma frequency is touching every single cell of the body. It's happening in the autonomic nervous system. And the information that's being sent to the cells is new information. The body's being lifted by energy, right? And a lot of times there's the eczema, now it's gone. There's the Parkinson's, now it's gone. There's the PTSD, now it's gone. The body has moved right out of the past into the present moment.
If people are listening and they're still skeptic, grab a copy of Dr. Joe's book, listen to one of his meditations to get started. Get started there and start practicing the 10 to 15 minute morning or evening routines that you have, which are extremely powerful. You can just get started with a few minutes a day. If you feel like this makes a lot of sense, I want more, go to a 7-day retreat. They sell out pretty quickly. They're usually sold out months in advance. So I recommend going to drjoedispenza.com, getting on the newsletter so you can be updated the next time there is a 7-day or 5-day retreat, and get on the wait list, get ready, and start training and preparing yourself to believe that the new you is available and the old you doesn't have to be the current you anymore. by listening to this episode again, by going through your book, by going through the online courses that he has as well, to set yourself up for new possibilities. That's what I would encourage people to do. And there's been a lot of people who've listened to these interviews in the past on here who've gone to your events that say they're life-changing. So I want to make sure that everyone at least listens to a meditation of yours, checks out a book, or gets on your newsletter at drjoedispenza.com and follows your content on social media as well, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So this is my final question. And I want to acknowledge you again for constantly showing up and being of service, because I feel like every time that we connect, there's so much good healing that happens in the world. And I want to continue to be of service to people. I want to continue to be of service to you and your message. And I want to continue to help my community or new communities coming in of this message. And I think the first time I had you on here was 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, maybe it's almost a decade, like 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. And the reason why I love continue to have you back on every year is because I continue to remember the future of my possibilities, remember what's possible. And it's a constant reminder of letting go of the old self and stepping into the new self. And so I want to acknowledge you again for constantly showing up. But there's a lot of sayings that you've shared on this show and at your events over the years. Your personality is your personal reality. Remember the future is something that people have tattooed on their arm after listening to you on here to remind themselves to think about the future and not the past. If you could only share 3 of these sayings that you use a lot, and that's all you could share, 3 sayings, and you have lots of them, what would they be for people right now in the current state of the world? What are those 3 sayings you share?
I would probably start off by saying that we are creators. We are, and we, with that we are divine. I think that's the first one. And I think that takes, once again, a revision of how we've been conditioned or programmed to believe something differently. And I also think that the power that made the body heals the body. And that power is available to any human being. And I think the most important thing is experience is the greatest professor. And go out and try it out for yourself. Prove to yourself that you're the creator of your life. Just try it out as an experiment. See if I change, will my life change?
Dr. Joe Dispenza, appreciate you. My man.
You've now gone from, oh, I'm anxious. And instead of saying, yes, you've got a disease of anxiety, which, well, now what? You've taken that out the equation and you said, okay, you're anxious, let's do this work. Let's find out what's going on. Let's see what we can do. Let's empower you to now use this anxiety as information and find out where the source is and how can we reconceptualize.